Yes, you are live now, Linda. Start now. Nelson Mandela. By the way, it's a very interesting thing related to Mandela. If you have not ever read about this, you should search मंडेला इफेक्ट. किसी को पता है मंडेला इफेक्ट क्या है? हम्म? सुना है कभी मंडेला इफेक्ट? हम्म? बहुत ही मजेदार चीज है मंडेला इफेक्ट. Mandela effect is an unusual phenomena where a group of people remember something differently than how it occurred. Actually, what happened? Mandela had not died. Mandela was very much alive, but a lot of people, a lot of people in USA used to believe that Mandela has died. This is a very peculiar situation. मंडेला मरा नहीं था पर सबको लगता था मंडेला. एंड दे यूज्ड टू रिमेम्बर सो विविडली कि लोगों को लगता था कि अरे उसका तो आई हैव वॉच्ड दैट देयर वाज अ पोसेशन एंड हमने देखा कि बहुत ही झांकी निकली थी और एवरीबॉडी वाज मॉर्निंग ऑन हिज डेथ. ही वाज वेरी मच अलाइव एंड किकिंग. Then some psychologists went deeper into this and they find out this Mandela effect, where a large group of people can remember something which has not even happened, or they may even remember something very differently. कि नहीं ऐसा नहीं ऐसा हुआ था. कभी मजा है कोई मन करे तो देखना, बहुत सारे मंडेला इफेक्ट के अच्छे एग्जांपल्स हैं. दृश्यम मूवी नहीं बोल सकते हैं, दृश्यम का कॉन्सेप्ट अलग था. Here nobody is forcing you to remember something. Naturally we remember that. uh, Anyway, so we know Mandela spent 28 years in South Africa, most dreaded prison, Robben Island. He could have, we will read later that he was a sportsman, wanted to become a fighter or something like that. But at a very young age, he got arrested and he spent 28 years. So, to 28 years. He spent all his youth in prison because of his ideal. तुम लोग उसे कहा जा रहा है कि एक साल ठीक से पढ़ाई कर लो तो आईएएस बन जाओगे, कुछ ना कुछ तो कर लोगे जीवन में अच्छा. बट एक साल देने के लिए लग रहा है कि अरे एक साल. Somebody gave 28 years of his life to fight for his ideal. We have discussed about how apartheid used to work, and also I'm not going into that again. Apartheid was a name of a system of racial discrimination unique to South Africa. Now read this as well now. पढ़ो इसको. Historical enemies succeed in negotiating a peaceful transition from apartheid to democracy exactly because we were prepared to accept the inherent capacity for goodness in the other. My wish is that South Africans never give upon the beliefs in goodness that they cherish, that faith in human being is the cornerstone of our democracy. As I told you, when African National Congress, the party which fought for against the apartheid, the party of Nelson Mandela, when they came into the power, they had two options, and they chose the way of peaceful transition from apartheid to democracy instead of having a violent overthrow of the government. Recently, there was a very controversial statement made by one of the great actress of our country. उन्होंने कहा कि भारत हमें जो आज़ादी मिली है वो भीख में मिली है, और वो भीख में इसलिए मिली है बिकॉज there was not an actual war. It was given to us by the Britishers. Such people do not understand the idea of peaceful transition of power. A war could have been fought in South Africa as well. But because of Mandela, they saw a peaceful transition from apartheid to democracy. And this happened because Mandela believed in inherent capacity for goodness in other. They do not saw or see white people as necessarily bad people, evil people. The belief is that all of us have inherent capacity to do good things. All of us are inherently good. The idea of Gandhi that we discussed during ethics classes, or we discussed otherwise, that hate the sin, not the sinner. The same idea is used by Mandela here, that even the sinner, even the person who is doing the crime, who is doing a wrong thing, has the capacity to reform himself, has the capacity to do good. So do not hate that person, hate the act he is doing. That's okay. So apartheid was resented, but not the white people. And based upon them, he says that Africa can grow only when we believe in this inherent goodness of human. This is the cornerstone of democracy. They drew up a common constitution there, common constitution for both blacks and whites. क्या हो गया? एक मिनट. हाँ. So they draw a common constitution. After 2 years of discussion, they come out with one of the finest constitution of the world ever had. South African constitution is one of the latest constitution, and it is one of the best. We will see the preamble of South African constitution later, which sums up its spirit. South African people proudly call themselves as Rainbow Nation. You will find black, white, men, women, people of mixed races, and that's why they call themselves as Rainbow Nation. This question can be asked in mains. You try to reflect back on this, the story of South African struggle for freedom and Indian national movement. What were the similarities and dissimilarities based upon all this? You try to reflect. कुछ नहीं समझ में आया तो पूछना. Now the question is why do we need constitution? The first thing here we saw when African white and blacks decided that we need to stop this fight. We need to provide equality. But once it has been decided that we need to do these things, people need guarantee that if blacks will be fair to white, white will also be fair to black. Or whites also need the same. Ki I will be fair to you will be just to me. एक मिनट एक चीज दिखाता हूँ तुम लोगों को मजेदार कुछ. कितने लोगों ने गैंग्स ऑफ वासेपुर देखा है? वेट. आया कुछ? नहीं आया समझ में. We make constitution because we make constitution because when some basic set of rules are set, nobody change the rule later. क्या वो पहले टॉस किया, डिसाइड किया कि पहले हम जाएंगे, तो तुम पहले जाओ, फिर उसका ट्रिक सीख लिया वो, फिर बोला कि नहीं अभी अभी तुम नहीं जाओ, अभी हम जाएंगे. This can happen in, this could have happened in South Africa as well. So people needed some guarantee that whatever we are negotiating and where we are promising, those things are taken care of, guaranteed. If we manage to trust each other, what was the guarantee that this trust will not be broken in future? And that guarantee is given by the constitution. The basic set of rules agreed by the people that we will do these things, we will follow these rules, certain basic rules, is constitution. And constitution making is not unique to South Africa. every country has a diverse group of people, and every country needs certain kind of basic set of rules. Constitution को कैसे याद रखोगे? So just basic set of rules. इतना तो होना चाहिए. Now, what Constitution does? Constitution does many things. Like it generates a degree of trust and coordination that is necessary for different kind of people to live together. Second, it specifies how the government will be constituted and who will have the power to take which decision. Third, it lays down the limit on the powers of the government and tells us what rights of the citizen are. Finally, the fourth is it expresses the aspirations of the people about creating a good society. I hope all these points are self-explanatory now. Fourth वाला थोड़ा सा एक बार देख लेते. Expresses the aspiration of the people about creating a good society. We saw in the case of Nepal, they needed a new constitution because their aspiration has changed. Now they wanted different things in their life. Because of that, this happened. Constitution was needed. Constitution also set limits on the powers of the government, what government can do and what they cannot do. It limits. यूपीएससी बहुत बार ये क्वेश्चन पूछ चुका है. Whenever there is a constitution, you must understand this. Whenever there is a constitution, the one basic feature of constitution is that it will put restriction on the government. No matter what kind of constitution it is. देखो एक है monarchy, राजा. For him, there is no law. Nobody is guiding him to do anything. He can do whatever he wants. But even if there is one single line of rule that okay, king can do everything except this, तो क्या होगा? It puts a certain kind of limitation. So you always remember that constitution's basic feature is limited government. It limits the power of the government. So after the war of independence against Britain, America gave itself constitution. Then French people, they made their own constitution. Now it has become a practice in all democracies to have a written constitution. So this chapter is very important, making of the Indian constitution. We have discussed about this briefly, but आज थोड़ा डिटेल से देखते हैं. The first idea that we need a constitution emerged during 1928. We will read about this in history as well. So in 1928, Indian people said that we need our own constitution. We were colonized at that time, but one of the important part of the freedom struggle was to have our own constitution. In 1931, in the Karachi session, for the first time, they included fundamental rights and all as a part of the constitution. They said that whenever we will have our constitution, we will include these provisions like adult franchise, right to freedom and equality, rights of minorities. So said that today we do not have those things, but whenever we will be free, we will make a constitution which will have these basic principles. And these basic principles were later adopted by the leaders of Constituent Assembly. Those who have done history classes, you know about Constituent Assembly. Those who have not done, Constituent Assembly was basically an assembly which was made to write constitution. Many people of that time, they came together and they first sat down to write those basic rules. We will see that who were there and how they were selected. Those are also the part of history. Now, it was not. Sometimes हम ऐसा perceive करते हैं, those who are new to this classes, very few of you are, but it happens to many of the people. We perceive as if that we got our independence or on one day, like 15 August 1947 को अचानक से आजादी मिल गई, and before that we were not independent, we were fighting और ऐसा कुछ चल रहा था. But you will see that independence was a gradual phenomena. Indian politicians have started fighting elections. They were already elected as MPs, so they already had training. Elections were held in 1937, and many Congress leaders have become ministers all over British India. So they had this experience of running political institutions. Now, one of the accusations you will, when you will be reading Lakshmikant, basic features make one of the accusations or negative points about our Indian constitution is that most of the features which are in this constitution are a copy of Government of India Act 1935. Now people think that we got independent, we were fighting for our own rule, our own constitution. Then when we got the chance to write our own constitution, why would we copy something which was made by Britishers? Right? Why would we copy something which was made by the Britishers? We actually follow this because the Government of India Act 1935, which was essentially brought by the Britishers, this was the product of a long struggle. For this to be implemented, Indian people have fought very long. It was not that Britishers have willingly given us this law or this act. So when we got independence, we kept the good things which were there in this, and then we added from our side. अब ये Constituent Assembly जो बनी, who were the people in this Constituent Assembly? Who made this Constitution for us? देखो, एक इलेक्शन हुआ Constituent Assembly के लिए. एक definition है. The drafting of the document called the Constitution was done by the Assembly of elected representatives called Constituent Assembly. Now, इस Constituent Assembly में जाएगा कौन? Who will make the Constitution? For that, election was held in July 1946. Now, this election was not direct election. जैसा हम अभी MP MLA को वोट करते हैं, इस तरीके का इलेक्शन नहीं था. This was an indirect election. Indirect election in the sense we have discussed about how Rajya Sabha members are elected. थोड़ा याद होगा तुम लोगों को. So people vote for MLAs and then MLAs vote for Rajya Sabha members, right? In the similar way, the MLAs who were elected at that time, they elected the members of Constituent Assembly. So there was no direct election. They were elected but indirectly elected. First meeting was held in December. We have discussed all this. Initially, what happened? That a joint Constituent Assembly was made, taking the people from India as well as Pakistan. That time partition had not happened. But when partition was finally done, Indian Constituent Assembly had left with 299 members. Our constitution, ये बहुत confusion होता है, इसको ठीक से याद कर लेना. Indian Constitution was adopted on 26 November 1949. So on 26 November 1949, Constitution was complete, and our Constituent Assembly adopted it. But it came into effect on 26 January 1950. पहले क्या हुआ? पहले अडॉप्ट हुआ और फिर केम इनटू इफेक्ट. तो एसी पहले अडॉप्ट देन केम इनटू इफेक्ट. दिस वाज डन बिकॉज दोज हु हैव रेड हिस्ट्री थोड़ा बहुत आइडिया होगा. ऑन 26 जनवरी 1930 वी फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम हैज सेलिब्रेटेड आवर इंडिपेंडेंस डे. कौन सा सेशन था कांग्रेस का? एनीवन जिन्होंने हिस्ट्री क्लासेस की है? Which session of Congress was this? हाँ, पूर्ण स्वराज तो था, बट कहाँ हुआ था ये कांग्रेस का सेशन? Lahore session. It's a very famous session, Lahore session. So in Lahore, for the first time, Nehru was the president, and they had decided to celebrate their Independence Day on 26 January 1930. So as a token of respect for this day, although constitution was ready on 26 November, they said ki no, we will start implementing it from 26 January. इसमें देखो, you will get a lot to read about these famous personalities. You must read about them, go and find out a little bit more about them. We're not going to discuss all of them in detail. Now, एक बहुत ही pertinent question है यहाँ पे कि why should we accept the constitution made by the assembly more than 6 decades ago? You might have heard people who says that constitution is not good, we should change our constitution, we should throw away this constitution, because of this constitution all the problems is there. But why should we respect this constitution which is made by or made 6 decades ago? क्या कहते हैं कि देखो, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन जो था, it does not reflected the views of the members alone. It was a carefully chosen constituent assembly. People from different parts of the country came together to make this constitution. Now, over the last half of the century, several groups have questioned some provisions of the constitution, but no large-scale group or political party ever questioned the legitimacy of constitution itself. एक जो मेन रीजन है बिकॉज ऑफ विच कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को हम अभी भी मानते हैं, क्योंकि nobody has said that they had any major grievance against constitution. Left, right, BJP, Congress, all the major parties, all of them show their faith in constitution, and this is an unusual achievement. We saw in the case of Nepal, they are still figuring out कि क्या करें constitution का. Every time there is a debate कि constitution हटाओ, नया constitution बनाओ. The second reason for accepting the constitution is the Constituent Assembly represented people of India. Although these members were not selected based upon or elected based upon universal adult franchise, but they represented each and every part of the country. They represented each and every class, whether it is scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, women, everybody was included. You should know that Ambedkar had not won election. So On his own, he could not have become the member of Constituent Assembly. But it was the great tradition of the time. On Gandhi's behest, Ambedkar was specially included into the Constituent Assembly because of his scholarship. स्कॉलरशिप का मतलब क्या होता है? स्कॉलरशिप का मतलब वो सिर्फ नहीं होता पैसा स्कॉलरशिप मिलना, बिकॉज द काइंड ऑफ स्कॉलर ही वाज. So because of his knowledge, he was included into the Constituent Assembly. And to make it more representative, because he was the voice of Dalits at that time. Finally, the manner in which the Constituent Assembly worked gives sanctity to the Constitution. क्यों हम इसको फॉलो करते हैं? बिकॉज कॉन्स्टिट्यूंट असेंबली में ऐसा नहीं हुआ कि कोई भी कुछ भी बना रहा है, जिसको मन है वो अपना थोप रहा है. It was a very systematic, open and consensual discussion. How it happened? First, some basic principles were decided and agreed upon. Everybody decided, okay, these are the things that at least we need. Everybody can agree that there should be equal voting rights for all and freedom and liberty, equality. Everybody agreed. Then a committee was made, drafting committee, which was chaired by B.R. Ambedkar, who prepared a draft constitution for discussion. Now I hope you understand what a draft means. हमने कल how the laws are made में पढ़ा था draft, कि draft of a law is first made and then discussion happened upon them and then it is presented into the parliament, it becomes bill and then it is passed and it becomes act. तो एक जो कहते हैं रफ ड्राफ्ट बनाओ. तो B.R. Ambedkar, based upon all these discussions and principles, he first wrote, or his committee wrote, the draft of the constitution. It's not that कि अंबेडकर ने जो बोल दिया वही कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन हो गया. He's called as father of the constitution because he was the head of the drafting committee. After that, several round of discussions took place. जैसे कि बिल को एक्ट बनाने के लिए क्या करना होता है? Discussions होते हैं and each clause is discussed if it's good or bad, and then amendments are made to them and finally the bill is passed. Similarly, here also they discussed each and every provision of the constitution. There was a clause by clause discussion. So if you know, we will see about this later also. But how a bill is made passed in parliament? सबसे पहला होता है इंट्रोडक्शन. किसी भी बिल के लिए 3 राउंड पे वोटिंग होती है. फर्स्ट राउंड होता है इंट्रोडक्शन. So in introduction, a minister will stand, or any person who want to introduce the bill, he will get the chance and he will stand and he will introduce the bill. That I want to introduce GST bill on the floor of the parliament. Then the speaker or the chairman will say, those who are in favor say aye, those who are against say no. So those who will be in favor, yes, the bill should be introduced, they will say aye or yes. So the speaker will then say, okay, I think ayes, more people are in the favor of ayes. So he will give the permission or she will give the permission to this minister to introduce the bill. Now, once bill is introduced, next happens clause by clause discussion. So any bill can have, or any law can have, different provisions. Article 16 A, B, C, D, E, F, 1, 2, 3, 4 ऐसा होता है. तो ये एक को एक clause बोलते हैं. So there will be clause by clause discussion. So first there will be, okay, this is the clause. This says that everybody will be taxed. I'm taking an example. Everybody should have to pay 10% tax. All those who agree say aye. तो एक एक clause पे फिर voting होगी. If there are 3 clauses, so there will be voting on each clause. And when all the clauses are passed, then the final voting happens on the overall bill. When this clause by clause discussion is happening, any member can stand and present an opposite point कि नहीं ये इसमें ठीक नहीं है. I think this change should be made. If the minister thinks कि yes, the point raised by the member is good and this changes can be made, he will then introduce the change, and then again voting will happen on those changed laws. And now if everybody is satisfied, then it will go to the final reading. Let's suppose there are many people who are saying no, and no consensus is being built here. In that case, the bill will be sent to a standing committee, which will look into the act, will take expert suggestions, will take the help of oppositions and all, and then make a refined bill. That bill will be again tabled on the floor of the parliament. Then again, clause by clause discussions will happen. If all the clauses are passed again, then in the third round, one complete voting will happen to pass the bill. So the speaker will ask, कि पहले member will say कि I ask the parliament to pass this bill. The speaker will say कि those who are in favor say ayes. People will say ayes. MPs will say ayes. The bill will be passed. इतना thorough process है. It's not like कि वहां जाते हैं और कोई भी law मन किया तो बना दिया. And that's why when you hear that parliament का पावर को कम किया जा रहा है, parliamentary power is undermined, that undermining means that this discussion is not being held, the opposition voices are not being heard, and bills are passed without taking their proper vote. और जब ये होगा तो कोई भी लॉ बन जाएगा. What happened during Farmers Act? There was this big controversy at that time. In Lok Sabha, BJP has the majority, so they were able to pass the act in Lok Sabha. But in Rajya Sabha, the situation was a little tricky. So when they presented the bill there, many opposition members said no. So they said, in the case when there is no clarity, you will heard this term, which is called voice vote. There's two methods of voting in parliament, or say any assembly. Voice vote. This is called voice vote. When the speaker asks those who are in favor say ayes, and he hear it if majority of people are saying yes, so he or she can pass the bill. So in the voice vote, it was not very clear because almost same number of people were saying yes and same number of people were saying no. So the opposition members of opposition asked that since voice vote is not clear, there should be a vote. On every seat there is a button. These ministers can press that button and their vote can be counted electronically. So they asked, let's have an electronic vote. But the chairman did not accepted this. He said, no, I think the ayes have it. And he passed the law. Although there are many other layers to this, but this is how it happens. But in our in the Constituent Assembly, such things were not happening. They were discussing this clause by clause, and thousands of amendments were considered. Not one and two, thousands of amendments were considered, discussed, and they deliberated for 114 days, spread over 3 years. The discussions that were made at this time are known nowadays. They are stored and they are known as Constituent Assembly debates. This is such a rich source of knowledge. You will, if you will read about some of them later in your time of preparation and all, and you will be shocked to see that what kind of scholars were present in the Constituent Assembly, how intelligent, how well aware they were about the topics that they were discussing about. So these are in 12 bulky volumes. So these key ideas, these three things, you will read about much more. Lakshmikant में और कई सारे aspects मिलेंगे. But three things, because nobody has opposed it till date, because the members were elected, and because it was done, the method that it followed was very thorough. We respect our constitution. Again, assembly had many members who were not with the Congress. The assembly represented members from different social groups, and members of the assembly believed in different ideologies. It was not that only Congress was there. People from extreme groups, right, right wing people, ultra right wing people, left wing people, everybody was there. Now, what are the guiding values of our constitution? Something written by Gandhi. If you want, you can read. We see Ambedkar, how he bitterly criticized. Ambedkar was always a critic of Gandhi. Ambedkar used to say that I have that person, I have seen that person as nobody has ever seen. I have seen him as an adversary, and I know his true colors. This is very important from Ambedkar. I think we have discussed this also in some other class. But on 26th of January, Ambedkar says that now we are going to be free, independent, and this constitution will give political equality to everyone. Politically, we will be equal, but in social and economic life, there will be no equality. There will be rich and poor, and there will be upper and lower caste. He says that we are living living a life of contradictions, where everybody has same vote, but they do not have same social or economic life. And he says that if we continue to deny it for long, we will do so only by putting our political democracy at peril. He says that if we will not remove this social or economic barriers, discriminations, even our political democracy will face a threat. Trust with Destiny, it's a very famous speech by Nehru. Kabhi mauka mile to padna, which was delivered on the night of independence. These are the preambles of constitution of different countries. So this is the preamble of USA. ये क्या कहते हैं? In order to form a perfect nation, establish justice, domestic tranquility वगैरह वगैरह, हम ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन लिख रहे हैं. साउथ अफ्रीका वाले अपना कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन लिख रहे हैं कि भाई हम ऑनर करेंगे, रिस्पेक्ट करेंगे, जो हुआ उसको भूल जाएंगे. एक बार पढ़ना इसको. And this is our preamble, this is our philosophy of constitution. We want sovereign, secular, socialist state, democratic republic where justice, liberty, equality, fraternity will be there. You try to memorize this. In the next class, we will be discussing about these topics in detail, or in class 11th we will discuss. This is something that you need to remember by heart. ठीक है, स्कूल का प्लेस याद हो या नहीं हो, इसको याद कर लेना है, बहुत हेल्पफुल है. एंड वन बाय वन बहुत इजी डेफिनेशंस हैं. इट्स अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पेज. वी विल कम बैक एंड डिस्कस अबाउट दिस. एक बार ये सारे लॉज देख सकते हो, वर्ड्स देख सकते हो. ड्राफ्ट इज अ preliminary version of a legal document. नेक्स्ट चैप्टर इज इलेक्टोरल पॉलिटिक्स, जहां पे कि बार्टन रसल के बारे में पढ़ेंगे. ये क्वेश्चन एक बार देखो एंड बताओ क्या सोचते हो तुम. व्हाई डू वी हैव डम when we have seen democracies need to have election, but why do rulers in non-democratic countries need to hold election? यही पूछ रहे थे ना तुम लोग कि why China hold election. कौन पूछ रहा था? तो कंडीशंस ऑफ अ डेमोक्रेटिक इलेक्शन के लिए क्या होना चाहिए? व्हाई हाउ वी कैन से कि इलेक्शंस आर डेमोक्रेटिक? एवरीबॉडी शुड बी एबल टू चूज, one vote should have one value, there should be something to choose from. ये एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट फीचर है डेमोक्रेसी का. there should be something to choose from, there should be reasonable choices. जैसे अभी अपने यहाँ क्या होता है कि दोनों ही पार्टीज तो करप्ट है, so who to choose? there's no reasonable choice. so there should be real choice to the voter. थर्ड क्या है? चॉइस शुड बी ऑफर्ड एट रेगुलर इंटरवल्स. ऐसा नहीं कि एक बार इलेक्शन करवा दिया और उसके बाद सो गए. देयर शुड बी इलेक्शंस एट रेगुलर इंटरवल्स. कैंडिडेट प्रिफर्ड बाय द पीपल शुड गेट इलेक्टेड. ऐसा नहीं कि इलेक्शन हो रहा है, पीपल आर वोटिंग फॉर समवन एल्स एंड समवन एल्स इज गेटिंग इलेक्टेड. सो फेयर इलेक्शन होना चाहिए. एंड इलेक्शन शुड बी कंडक्टेड इन अ फ्री एंड फेयर मैनर वेयर पीपल चूज एज दे रियली विश. ऐसा नहीं कि धमका के वोट दिलवा रहे हैं कि इस बार वोट नहीं दिया तो अगली बार देख लेना. So now the question is it good to have political competition? क्या लगता है तुम लोगों को? पॉलिटिकल कंपटीशन होना चाहिए? It suggests that because of the political competition, we see that there is a sense of disunity and factionalism. People are divided into groups now. आज के टाइम में तो और भी ज्यादा है. Like in the same family, if someone is voting for BJP and another is voting for Congress, people do not talk to each other. कुछ बच्चे मेरी क्लास से इसलिए भाग जाते हैं कि मेरी क्लास उनके वोटिंग प्रेफरेंस से मैच नहीं करती. So there's a sense of disunity and factionalism. Because of party politics, the society is divided, and there is extreme pressure to win the electoral fights. That does not allow sensible long-term policies to be formulated. This political competition sounds very bad, right? This says our constitution makers were aware of these problems. It's not like they have made a mistake. Yet they opted for free competition election as the way to select the future leaders. They did so because the system works better in long run. देखो एक आइडियल सिचुएशन में तो लीडर्स को पता है कि व्हाट इज गुड फॉर द पीपल एंड दे आर मोटिवेटेड ओनली द डिजायर टू सर्व देम. This is an ideal world where you think all the leaders will be like Lal Bahadur Shastri or so, who are born to serve people. But in real life, this is not possible. So what is the solution? The solution is political competition. Political leaders all over the world, like other professionals, are motivated by the desire to advance their political career. एक बार जो नेता बना है वो क्या चाहता है, वो अगली बार भी जीतना चाहता है. He want to advance his political career, and in order to win the election, he he wants to remain in the power or get power and the position for themselves. हो सकता है कि वो ऐसा लोगों को सर्व करना चाहता हो. दे मे विश टू सर्व द पीपल, बट इट्स रिस्की टू डिपेंड entirely on their sense of duty. And even if they know want to serve, they may not be knowing ki what is actually required to be done. So what political competition does is that it motivates these leaders to know about the people, to be in connect with the people. If they will not be serving the people, they will be punished. And the people have the power. This is what electoral competition does. If you will not listen to the people, people will change you. So these politicians always have to be updated with the need of the people. वैसे मैं तुम लोगों को आज ये पढ़ाना चाहता था, पता नहीं how many of you will appreciate this. This is the Nobel lecture that Barton Russell has given in 1950, 11 December 1950. Why we love power and what power does to us. He says that love for power is greatly influenced by the experience of the power. तुमने वो कोट सुना होगा, पावर करप्ट्स and absolute power corrupts absolutely. But Russell has a different conception of power. He doesn't see power necessarily as evil. Russell क्या कहते हैं कि power is greatly increased by the experience of power. This applies to petty power as well as that too of potence. The more you experience power, the more you want to enjoy that. He has given a very good example that even a housewife or well-to-do ladies who will get servants, once they will get the test of commanding these servants and getting their jobs fulfilled, as they will grow older in their life, they will become more cruel to the servants. Actually, they do not have any power in their life, but by displaying our power, we get a sense of satisfaction. And it is true for the potents, for the very powerful, as well as for those who are very petty. So you may not have much power, but as a elder brother or a sister, you have some power upon your siblings, and you would love to enjoy that power. थोड़ा यूज करके अच्छा फील आता होगा. बहुत अच्छा एग्जांपल देते हैं यहाँ पे रसल, that a petty official concerned with obviously, oh sorry, if you require a building permit, तुम्हें एक building permit चाहिए from a petty official, कोई छोटा सा क्लर्क भी है, उससे भी तुमको अगर बिल्डिंग का परमिट चाहिए, he will not get more pleasure in saying yes, he will get more pleasure in saying no, because saying no shows that he has the power. So people derive this satisfaction from refusal. मना करने से पावर दिखता है, and that's why we see that bureaucracy is so pathetic. Whenever you go to an office, they want to really beg. They want you to beg. घुटने में बैठ के बोलो कि भगवान मेरा सर्टिफिकेट दे दीजिए, तो दे देंगे. Because people get this taste of power and they want to enjoy that power. And I think it's this sort of thing which makes the love of power such a dangerous motive. But he says ki on the other side, power is also very kind. Why? Like after reading this, this was a very again a very enlightening moment for me. Why I spend 10 hours a day reading a book? What I want? Why I'm searching on internet, trying to know everything in the world? Why you are spending this much time here? Russell says the pursuit of knowledge in itself is nothing but an act. It is actuated by love of power. Knowledge is power. When you know things, you feel powerful. You know you feel capable. Ultimately, it's a different style of power, and he says that this is a good power. So those who use or those who are in the pursuit of knowledge to actuate their love love of power, they actually contribute in the nation building, they contribute in the transformation of societies and all. बहुत अच्छा एग्जाम्पल यहाँ पे दिया है. देखो, नेपोलियन का एग्जाम्पल इन्होंने दिया कि व्हाट नेपोलियन वाज डूइंग. नेपोलियन could have become an emperor of Croatia as well, and he could have been satisfied emperor. But being emperor of Croatia doesn't give us the satisfaction. Your love of power is not satisfied. Napoleon's love of power was not satisfied. So instead of being the emperor of Croatia, he chose to become the emperor of France. उससे ज्यादा पावर, ज्यादा एलिगेंस नजर आता है. But it says कि Napoleon is not the perfect, pure example of person who is acting just to get power. It says ये बहुत अच्छा एग्जाम्पल है बैरन हॉलस्टिन का. Now this person you will find very interesting. This person was actually living in a slum. He never appeared in the society. He never met emperor except like one single occasion he has to meet because emperor was very restless. But he was the man who controlled the foreign policy of German Empire from 1890 to 1906. 16 years, a person living in a slum ran controlled the foreign policy of one of the biggest empire of that time. So Baron Holstein has nothing to achieve. He wants nothing. He's a pure example of a person who wants power. He wants क्या चाहिए इसको? He doesn't he merely but he compelled the empire to adopt the foreign policy that he preferred. ये सबका ऐसा क्या करता था, ये सबका सीक्रेट ये बैठे बैठे जान गया था. And he used to he used to blackmail everyone from chancellor to कैसरिन, जितना है बड़े बड़े लीडर्स और पॉलिटिशियंस और स्टेक होल्डर, जो सबको ये ब्लैकमेल करता था. But he was not blackmailing them to acquire some wealth or anything. He was blackmailing them not to acquire wealth, fame, or any other obvious advantage, but just to see that what he thinks should be done in the foreign policy is achieved. ये पढ़ना आर्टिकल बहुत लंबा है, I can't discuss whole of it, but होप कि तुम लोगों को मजा आ रहा होगा ये पढ़ के. एनीवे, रिटर्न करते हैं. तो पॉलिटिकल कंपटीशन क्या करता है? थोड़ा तुम लोग का चेहरा देख लो, मैं कोई एक्सप्रेशन है कि नहीं. कुछ समझ में आ रहा था कि मैं ऐसे ही समझा रहा था? कुछ आया समझ में? मजेदार लगा? नहीं लगा? बाकी का डिस्कशन इथिक्स की क्लास में. So political competition is in fact a very good thing, because whosoever want the power or continue to remain in power, they have to know about the people, what people wants. क्या कहते हैं कि they know that if they raise the issue that people want to be raised, their popularity and the chances of victory will increase in the next election. But if they fail to satisfy the voters with their work, they will not be able to win again. Now here is another question, thought provoking one. There's a word, I don't know how many of you have heard about this, populism. सुना है पॉपुलिज्म वर्ड किसी ने? क्या मतलब है वैसे ही? अरे नहीं, it's not, this has not related to bio. In politics, हम आजकल क्या देख रहे हैं, in almost all the countries, these populist leaders have risen up. ये क्या होता है, पॉपुलिस्ट लोग क्या करते हैं, दे डू नॉट थिंक अबाउट गुड और बैड, दे थिंक अबाउट कि व्हाट पीपल वांट. जैसे कि लेट्स टॉक अबाउट ट्रम्प. When Trump won US election, he said that I will make America great again. So he said कि we will stop the trade with China. He said that we will build a wall with Mexico and we will not allow any foreigners to come in our country. The people who are stealing your jobs, they will be stopped. He made all sort of popular demands. Whatever people wanted, he made all sort of promises, which were not actually good for the country. You cannot stop trade. You cannot build a boundary with a neighbor. You cannot signal out one community कि ये इंडिया वाले सब आके तुम्हारा जॉब ले जा रहे हैं. And you should not. It creates more tension in the society. But we saw a rise of these populist leaders, like what happened in Tamil Nadu. Every year, elections are done in a way like अभी इंडिया में जैसे क्या हो रहा है, elections are happening in UP. So everybody is coming up with, I will give you motorcycle, I will give you scooter, I will give you laptop, I will give you 10 lakh people rupees, I will pardon your क्या बोलते हैं, I will cancel your loans. तो ये सब पॉपुलिस्ट मेजर्स हैं, लोगों को खुश करके इलेक्शन जीतना. एंड नाउ देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ soul searching on this going on. Is it like a right populism? A true leader, it's someone who shapes the ideas of their followers. लीडर दो तरीके के हो सकते हैं. एक लीडर वो होता है who conforms by the ideas of their followers. उनको follower को लगता है कि I will follow a leader who will do this monkey dance. So the leader will do the monkey dance to remain their leader. And then there are leaders like Gandhi who will do exactly opposite to what their followers want and still will force them to think in his direction. Great leaders give a direction to the masses. They do not conform to the populace, or they do not start following the masses themselves. लेकिन आज के टाइम में unfortunately the most of the leaders that we have, they are the followers of the masses. लोग को कम्युनलिज्म पे वोट मिल रहा है तो लाइक इवन इफ वी सॉ मेनी लीडर्स हु स्विच पार्टीज बेस्ट अपॉन सीइंग कि मार्केट में क्या चल रहा है, किसको वोट मिलने का चांस आता है. नाउ कमिंग टू आवर इलेक्शन सिस्टम, हमारे यहाँ दो तरीके के इलेक्शन. देखो ये बहुत एक कंट्रोवर्शियल टर्म है. दिस क्वेश्चन केम इन एग्जाम दिस ईयर एंड मेनी पीपल मेड मिस्टेक. जनरल इलेक्शन हिंदी में कहते हैं आम चुनाव. Generally, if you are watching the news and all, news channels call the election of Lok Sabha as Aam Chunav or general election. NCRT says that election of both Vidhan Sabha and Lok Sabha are called as general election. These general elections are held after regular 5 years. So every 5 year पे जो इलेक्शन हो रहा है उसको हम जनरल इलेक्शन कहते हैं. But sometime what happens that if somebody dies or resigns because of any vacancy, we have by-elections. So general election and by-election, दो तरीके के election है. General election and by-election. General elections are regular 5-year elections, and if there is any election in between, they are called by-elections. They can happen like general election लोकसभा में भी होगा, general election सारे स्टेट्स में भी होगा. Electoral constituencies. We have discussed about what electoral constituencies means. आज के द हिंदू में एक बहुत अच्छा आर्टिकल है about changing. आज या कल के द हिंदू में था what has happened in Kashmir. इलेक्टोरल कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसीज को कैसे मैनिपुलेट किया जा सकता है टू विन इलेक्शन. ऑल ऑफ यू आर लाइक, मुझे नहीं लगता है किसी को कंफ्यूजन होगा कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसीज क्या होता है. हमने काफी अच्छे से डिस्कस कर लिया है. एक ये देखा. There is a concept called gerrymandering or gerrymander. Gerrymandering means to manipulate the boundaries so as to have the favor of one party or one class. जैसे कि एक एग्जांपल देखो, let's suppose there are two kind of people. These red people are willing to vote for BJP and blue people are voting for Congress, or you can do the vice versa, any party, or party A or party B. So here we see 60% are voting for blue party and 40% are voting for red party. Now, if you divide the constituencies like this in equal proportion, only blue party will win all the seats. Blue will win 5 and red will win 0. है ना, ये समझ में आ रहा है? But if you start dividing this territory like this, इसको अगर इस तरीके से ड्रॉ कर दिया, so here you see now Reds have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks here and 4 blue dots. So red will win 1 here and red will win 1 here as well. So just by changing the constituency, just by changing how the constituency is divided, a party which has no chance of winning any seats can now win 2 seats. इसको कहते हैं gerrymandering. This was used by a politician, gerrymander, I think his name is, in USA to win votes. He planned the constituencies in such a way कि कई जगह पे जहां उसकी मेजोरिटी नहीं थी वहां उसकी मेजोरिटी हो गई. So sometimes, and that's why constituencies का division इतना sensitive division है. If you have read the newspaper, in the newspaper it says कि new constituencies in Jammu and Kashmir are devised in such a way that in some constituencies where Muslims were predominantly having majority, now they are in minority, or in such the division has been done in such a way कि Hindu vote percentage has increased, which will of course everybody knows will favor or BJP. तो इसके लिए कि वहां के जो regional parties हैं they are protesting. Although in our country we have 43 constituencies in Lok Sabha. And we have also discussed this, that every constituency should have roughly equal population living within it. We have also discussed the idea of reserved constituencies where seats are reserved for ST and SCs. There is no reservation for OBC communities. In some places, reservation has been made. महाराष्ट्र में अभी बहुत सारा चल रहा है चक्कर इसके लिए. Even in MP, the local elections were suspended a few days back because of this reservation issue, where reservation should be given to OBCs in local elections or not. And then there are reserved seats for women in rural and urban local bodies. We know about voter list. The electoral roll is known as voter list, an official list which consists the name of all eligible voters. Now, in our country, everybody has the right to vote except some criminals and person with unsound mind. The complete revision of voter rolls happen after every 5 years. 5 साल पे हर बार एक वोटर रोल रिवाइज होता है, और जिसको भी हम नॉर्मली वोटर कार्ड बोलते हैं, इट इज द ऑफिशियल नेम इज इपिक, इलेक्शन फोटो आइडेंटिटी कार्ड. वोटर आईडी कार्ड is officially known as EPIC. You must know that for voting, your voting card is not necessary. You can vote for any valid document, even with your driver's license or Aadhaar card. The one thing which is necessary is your name should be there in voting list. Now, who fight these elections? In our country, to be able to vote, the minimum age is 18, but to able to contest election for MP or MLA, the minimum age is 25. If you want to fight elections, you have to fill a nomination form. You go to the district magistrate and you fill a form. When you fill that form, you have to give some money. That money is known as security deposit. I think it's 15,000 or so. It's called as deposit because government doesn't want non-serious people to participate in elections. So they have put a very minimum amount so that only those who are really interested in contesting the election, they come for this. There is a minimum cutoff. If they will not get a minimum number of vote, I think it's 2% or 10%, something like that, 10% of the winning candidate. Check कर लेना. तो if a candidate will not get that minimum percentage, the money will not be returned to him. If you are able to secure that, then ये जो security deposit है वो वापस आ जाएगा. People fight on party's ticket or independent, we know that. Now every candidate has to make a legal declaration. उनके ऊपर कितना क्रिमिनल केस है, उन्होंने कहाँ तक पढ़ाई की है, वगैरह वगैरह, they have to declare. One of the again controversial issues, many of you will be of the favor that when everybody has everything has a qualification, why not we have a qualification for leaders? नेताओं के लिए क्यों नहीं क्वालिफिकेशन है? कितने लोग सोचते हैं कि नेताओं के लिए क्वालिफिकेशन होना चाहिए? We should have a minimum qualification for politicians. कितने लोग सोचते हैं कि नहीं होना चाहिए? नहीं वाले कौन थे? बाकी लोगों का कोई ओपिनियन नहीं है, हो जाए तो अच्छा, नहीं है तो अपना क्या जाता है. Now there, as I told you, कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली में बहुत खतरनाक लोग थे, मतलब stalwarts. So if they had not made education qualification necessary, they must have thought about it. The reason for not having any educational qualification is very simple. Education do not give you any better understanding of society. A farmer will understand the problems of farmers much better than a Harvard University agricultural graduate. So in an election, you do not need, ministers are not supposed to be educated people. They are the representatives of the voice of the people. They need to understand the problems of the people. And the most important thing, the funny thing and the interesting thing about this, if people really think कि education is relevant, लोगों को अगर इंडिया के सारे वोटर्स को आज लगने लगे कि एटलीस्ट ग्रेजुएट आदमी को ही नेता बनना चाहिए, and anybody less than graduate should not contest or should not be able to win the election, then they will not vote for that person. So there is a inbuilt method of filtration. तो आपको क्या परेशानी है? So it should be left to the people to decide कि how much importance they give to the educational qualification. If people will give a lot of importance to educational qualification, they will vote for qualified person. If not, they will not. And more so, if in our country we make graduation, BA, BSc compulsory for candidates, 90% of the citizens will become ineligible to contest election. So this is against the basic tenet of the democracy, that anybody can fight election. Now, election campaign के बारे में कुछ है, how campaigns are done and what are the problems with elections. All of you probably know, bribe होता है, ये वो बहुत कुछ चलता है। इलेक्शन कमीशन ने कुछ लिमिट लगा के रखी है कि यू कैन नॉट स्पेंड मोर देन 25 लाख रुपीज फॉर लोकसभा इलेक्शन एंड 10 लाख फॉर असेंबली इलेक्शंस, बट वी नो दैट करोड्स ऑफ रुपीज आर स्पेंड। एक एक करोड़ तो आजकल मुखिया के इलेक्शन में लोग खर्च कर दे रहे हैं। देयर इज अ मॉडल कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट ड्यूरिंग इलेक्शंस, यू मस्ट हैव हर्ड द नेम ऑफ की मॉडल कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट लग गया है। Model code of conduct says that every party should follow at least some basic minimum rules. No party or the candidate should use a place of worship for election propaganda. Official government vehicles should not be used. ऐसे ऐसे और कई लॉ हैं, पढ़ोगे, we will discuss about this in detail. I think somebody was asking कि इलेक्शन पे इतना खर्चा क्यों करते हैं. In our country, हम लगभग गवर्नमेंट ऑलमोस्ट स्पेंड 3,500 crores on conducting elections. This is a lot less than what we spend on Commonwealth Games. तो ऐसा बहुत खर्चीला इलेक्शन नहीं है. द कंट्री वी कैन अफोर्ड दिस. थोड़ा सा और बचा है, चलो आज छुट्टी कर लेते हैं, बिकॉज दिस इज द लास्ट ऑफ चैप्टर. नहीं, लास्ट फॉर दिस क्लास. अच्छा, एक और चैप्टर है क्या इसमें? हमको अच्छा अभी 3 ही पढ़ रहे हैं हमारे. एक तो बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट, आई वाज थिंकिंग कि आज ये खत्म कर लेंगे. वर्किंग ऑफ इंस्टीट्यूशंस, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट चैप्टर. You don't have to read chapter 4, sorry, chapter 5. Chapter 5 is about democratic rights. तो ये सेम चैप्टर अगेन क्लास 11th में है, हम इसको वहां पे देखेंगे. लेकिन अरे चलो फिर लेट्स कंप्लीट एटलीस्ट दिस वन चैप्टर. छोड़ो, बाद में करेंगे. बताओ. आई थिंक अब दिमाग में जा नहीं रहा, मैं भी थक गया. Let's end it here. Anybody has any doubt, you can ask, or we will meet again on next Saturday. You are in which side, Mandela or Russell? It depends. I'm more in Mandela's side. Life doesn't really matter that much to me. Epic abbreviation of what? After polity. आफ्टर पॉलिटी क्या होता है, मैं भी भूल गया हूँ एक्चुअली. आई वाज आल्सो थिंकिंग कि आफ्टर पॉलिटी हम लोग क्या स्टार्ट करते हैं. क्या स्टार्ट करते हैं हम लोग आफ्टर पॉलिटी? ज्योग्राफी स्टार्ट करते हैं. वी विल स्टार्ट ज्योग्राफी. देखना पड़ेगा एक बार शेड्यूल. आई थिंक इट शुड बी ज्योग्राफी. हम कैसे करते हैं, हिस्ट्री करते हैं, फिर पॉलिटी करते हैं, नहीं हम इकोनॉमी करते हैं, फिर हिस्ट्री करते हैं, फिर पॉलिटी करते हैं, फिर ज्योग्राफी करते हैं. हाँ, so this is the sequence. इकोनॉमी, हिस्ट्री, पॉलिटी, ज्योग्राफी. सो दिस पॉलिटी, फिर ज्योग्राफी, फिर इकोनॉमी, फिर हिस्ट्री. Do not die for foolish cause. As Russell said, do not die for petty issues. कि उसने बोल दिया कि उसको वो चाहिए, मैं बोल रहा हूँ मुझे ये चाहिए, तो चलो लड़ लेते हैं. Die for real values, like Socrates died. ठीक है, let's end it here. Any question, anyone? Those who wanna leave can leave. This is over. Way about the day. आज मैंने कुछ नहीं सुनाया क्या तुम लोग को? ये जाके पढ़ना, बार्टन रसल का स्पीच पढ़ना, थॉट प्रोवोकिंग है. क्या सुनाओ? एक फनी स्टोरी मैंने लिखी थी. मैं ज्यादा कॉमेडी नहीं करता हूँ, बट एक फनी स्टोरी है इधर, सुनोगे? You are teaching us beside this, what should we do in NCERT? Should we make notes? Yes, try to take some notes. Especially जैसे मैं वो अभी के बुक्स में there are no such facts जो तुमको है. ऐसा प्रीलिम्स में तो कुछ भी पूछ देते हैं आजकल, लेकिन बहुत फैक्ट्स नहीं है, लेकिन कंटेंट बहुत है. इफ यू कैन रीड द लैंग्वेज, इफ यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड द लैंग्वेज, इफ यू कैन बिल्ड दैट एनालिटिकल स्किल, जहाँ कुछ पॉइंट दिया हुआ है कि these are the 5 points against democracy, these are the 5 points in favor of democracy, even if you have understood the topics, लिखने बोलूंगा तो दिक्कत होगी. नोट मेकिंग का सबसे बड़ा हेल्प होता है मेंस में. when you have to put your thought in words and you have not made notes, you have not practiced, it becomes very difficult. So note making का फायदा होगा तब, इसलिए बनाओ नोट्स. तो कहानी का नाम है मदद. सुनाया नहीं है ना मैंने कभी इस क्लास में? किसी को मैंने सुनाया है मदद? तेईस कुछ कहना चाहते हो?
ये सर बोलना चाहते हैं, जब हम लोग वोट देते हैं तो मंत्रालय तो बाद में डिवाइड होता है. तो सर, तो जैसे आप बोल रहे थे एजुकेशन क्वालिफिकेशन ठीक है, मिनिमम नहीं रहना चाहिए. जैसे झारखंड के हैं हम, तो वहाँ शिक्षा मंत्री हम लोग 10th पास है, अब 12th फेल कर गए. अगर एग्जाम दिए थे जगन्नाथ महतो, तो हम लोग थोड़ी जानते हैं कि किसको वोट जब हम लोग दे रहे हैं तो वो मंत्रालय किसको कब मिलेगा.
We will discuss about this in the very next chapter. We have to discuss about, बहुत लोगों के पास, तुम लोगों के पास बहुत सारा डाउट होगा that why politicians are so much powerful when हम इतना पढ़ के जा रहे हैं और उसके बाद हम लोगों को सारा बात मानना पड़ता है politicians का. तो क्यों, कैसे? We will discuss about political executive and the permanent executive. बात करेंगे नेक्स्ट क्लास में. अच्छा क्वेश्चन है, अमन बताओ.
Hello, sir. And my question is that from when to start writing answer writing practice?
आंसर राइटिंग अभी नहीं होगा. आई हैव टोल्ड मेनी अ टाइम्स, you work upon your English, make notes, improve your grammar, improve your vocabulary, try to write short paragraphs, एक बार जब कंटेंट बिल्ड हो जाए, जब सारा बुक पढ़ लो, रेफरेंस बुक, तब एक्चुअली आंसर राइटिंग कर सकते हो।
Sir, you have posted in the WhatsApp NCRT group. In WhatsApp group, there is one group you have posted that about test series. You are launching a program of test series.
दैट
Okay.
इज फॉर 2023 2022 स्पिरिट, तुम लोगों को नहीं करना है वो। सम ऑफ यू हैव ज्वाइंड, मैंने बाद में पैसा वापस करना पड़ा मुझे। ये सब काम मत करो। ठीक। हाँ अल्ताफ बताओ।
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
या
Sir, I have a question for the parliament. If any member win any party, then after he change the party, why he cannot dismiss? Why not re-election?
if anybody change the party, there is a law called anti defection law and they are dismissed। बात करेंगे एंटी डिफेक्शन पे, बात करेंगे 11th जैसे थोड़ा स्टार्ट होने दो।
Thank you.
ठीक है। बहुत लोग भाग गए। रुक क्या जाए कहानी।